Hi, my name is Mikal Skuterud. I'm a professor in the economics department at the University of Waterloo. I've been there for about 16 years now, and prior to joining Waterloo, I worked at Canada's National Statistical Agency, which is called Statistics Canada in Ottawa. And I worked there for 3 years after completing my PhD, and my PhD was done at McMaster University, and that took about 5 years. So you can get a pretty good idea from all of that if you do some addition of how old I am. Right now I'm sitting in my home office. My home is about a 10-minute walk from my office at the campus at University of Waterloo. But I've been working at home for the past year. And I live in this house with my wife and my 2 kids and our dog, who we got during this pandemic, and his name is Castro. I actually should have put him in the video, but it was a little bit too much work. Well, as a high school student living in Mississauga, I worked in a large warehouse that hired a lot of immigrants, refugees from Trinidad, and I got to know those guys quite well. And I think that had an influence on my interests. So I think it got me thinking about how life is sometimes very unfair, and where you're born has a pretty big impact on where you end up in life and the challenges that you have in life. And I think that led me towards a program known as the Labor Studies program at McMaster University. And so I enrolled in a number of courses as part of that program, and one of them was economics. At that time, when I took Econ 101, I had never heard of economics. I mean, it wasn't that I hadn't taken a course in economics. I literally had never heard of it. I didn't know that there was such a thing. It appealed to me very quickly. And I think what appealed to me was that there was a lot of math in it, and I liked math. I did quite well in math in high school. But it wasn't just math for math's sake. It was math to try and understand the world we live in, and to try and understand that unfairness that led me to university in the first place and to study labor studies. So I ended up doing a combined degree in labor studies and economics. I think there are 2 main things. One is that I think it's a good size. It's not too big and it's not too small. So it's big enough that we pretty much have a professor that has an expertise in almost every area of economics. So if you have an interest, you will be able to find a course somewhere that somebody's teaching that area, or somebody to talk to about your interests. But in addition to that, it's not so big that I feel kind of lost inside the department. It very much feels like a family. There's about 26 or 27 of us. We know each other very well. And so it's a comfortable place, and I like spending my time. And when I'm not teaching, I still like to spend a lot of my time at the department. So you'll find me in my office quite often. Well, economists, everybody that works as an economist in my department, they have fields that they have expertises in. And so my field is labor economics. I study labor markets. And even within that field, I have a narrow expertise, and that is that most of my work has been on the economics of immigration. So, as many of you know, of course, Canada is a country that receives many immigrants every year. Now we're aiming for about 1% of our entire population will enter as new immigrants in any given year. And those immigrants have an impact on the economy, not only as consumers that they buy stuff, but also as workers, as labor. And so I study what that impact is. And why do people care about that? Well, because we have a lot of policies that the government designs to try and maximize the beneficial impact of immigrants. So part of those policies are trying to select the right immigrants, the immigrants that will have the biggest impacts. And the other part of the policies are trying to settle immigrants and help them integrate into Canada's labor markets. So that's a big part of what I do. But during the pandemic, a lot of my research has actually shifted away from that topic towards studying the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the Canadian economy, and in particular on labor markets. I have found this personally, as much as COVID-19 has been tragic, it's really actually been very unequal in how it's affected people and impacted people's lives. For me as a researcher, it's been an absolutely fascinating episode to study because it really teaches you how you can take an economy and just shut it down from one day to the next and then watch it adjust. And it's making all kinds of adjustments, both in the workers that are available to work and employers and companies and how much they want to hire new workers. And as we come out of this pandemic, it's going to be very interesting to study. So that's been where a lot of my research has been focused in the past year. Well, this past year is a pretty good example. The work I've been doing, I think, has been getting quite a bit of attention. I've deliberately got more involved in Twitter because I've sort of been isolated from work. So to stay engaged, I started sending more of my research and the results out on Twitter, and that's received some attention, both from the media. So I've been doing a lot more interviews with journalists and television and radio interviews. But more importantly for me personally is I've been getting calls from the federal government asking for my views on what the challenges are and what policy directions we should be moving in. So I recently received a call from ESDC, which is basically our Ministry of Labor in Canada, and they just wanted to kind of pick my brain and chat to me about what I see as being the most significant challenges moving forwards.